Hey, it's a great day. I'm Mike Current, Energizer, and in this video, I'm going to be going through the 5 things that concern me the most about my Continental Divide thru hike. So let's do this. So today I'm out on a training hike above my house. Another 1,000 feet up, I'd be hitting snow, but where I'm at right here is pretty nice and warm. I'm enjoying it. So the 5 things I'm concerned about, I will go through these in the order that I will likely encounter them on the trail. The first thing I'm concerned about on my thru hike is the heat in southern New Mexico. Now, I have suffered from mild hypothermia twice in my life. One of the many opportunities afforded to me in my 30 years of military service, but because of that, I know I am susceptible to the cold. I mean, there's a reason when I retired from the military, my wife and I moved to Key West, Florida, opened a business down there, and then when we retired, moved to northern Nevada, where my family lives, and we spend 2 to 3 months out of the winter down in Southern California because I really don't care for the cold. But over the years, I have come to learn that I fare better in the heat than others do. But I can never take that for granted. If you listen to the Trek Trail Correspondence podcast series, in the podcast series hosted by Moron, trail name Moron, does an excellent job. What they do is they'll take about a dozen thru hikers across the 3 Triple Crown trails, and you listen to their stories as they're going down the trail, and I find them very enjoyable to listen to. They're typically new thru hikers, and you can gain a lot of insight listening to somebody new look at an old problem. And so I enjoy listening to the podcast series. But last year, season 4, they only had one of the trail correspondents was going to be hiking the Continental Divide Trail. So I was really interested in listening to her story, knowing that I'd be going down that trail the following year. But unfortunately, 10 miles off the border, right there. She started April 28th. I'm going to be starting May 1st. She started April 28th. But 10 miles from, starting her hike, she had to push the SOS button on her Garmin and get medevaced out because of a heat-related injury. And in the podcast series, you listen to what happened to her. She's very open about it. And incredible lessons learned from that, mainly that it can happen to anyone, and it really can. So I'm going to be, trying to be extra cautious because it is not uncommon for people to be pulled out of the desert on the CDT because of a heat-related injury, and I don't want to be one of those individuals. Even though I know I adapt well to the heat, I'm going to be taking it easy. First few days, I'll be mining the heat, mining the desert, and making sure that, I'm doing what I need to do to make sure that I don't succumb to a heat-related injury. So that's number 1, the heat in southern New Mexico. So my second concern is the snow, specifically in Colorado, starting in the San Juan Mountains, southern Colorado. Now, I've gone through and traversed through snow. If you watch my Pacific Crest Trail thru hike, you know that I traversed through the snow in the Sierra during that. And when I was quite a bit younger, I did a section hike from Tuolumne Meadows to Tahoe, where my son and we were walking for days in the snow. And so I've done it, I'm accustomed to it. But, you can't take that lightly. Going over snow, having trail crampons, having the ice axe, picking the route, making sure, things are going to be okay, and the time of day you do it, because that's a factor. That's my concern. Now, this year is an average snow year. It's right on the average line. If you look at the CDT post holder series, you know that it's right on the average. So it's all going to depend on how quickly the snow melts. I'm going to be pacing myself through New Mexico to ensure that I don't arrive too early in the San Juans. I'm looking around the 10th to the 15th of June. Even then, there should be some snow still left, but hopefully it's passable and not too much. But yeah, that's my second concern, is the snow in the San Juan Mountains and then further into Colorado, to make sure that I'm able to traverse it safely. The third thing I'm concerned about on my Continental Divide Trail thru hike is lightning. Monsoon season in Colorado, and then it extends up into Wyoming. So if you watch my PCT thru hike, you know that there's about a 5-mile section above Sonora Pass in the Sierra where the trail stays above timberline. It stays up pretty high for about 5 miles. And as I was walking up to it, I could see the storm forming and forming and forming. And by the time I got up on top, it was a full-born lightning storm. And yeah, I walked 5 miles through a lightning storm. I was so hungry. I hadn't eaten. I had run out of food. I think the day before I'd run out of food, and I was so hungry that I had convinced myself that I was either going to die then from being struck by lightning, or I was going to be eating pancakes the next morning at Kennedy Meadows North at the resort. And I was thinking so irrationally at that point that either option was perfectly acceptable to me. I was just going down. Now, poor decisions make for great stories, but I look back at that and think, boy, that was not very smart. That was pretty dumb. And so as I'm going through the lightning in the higher mountains of Colorado, I need to be careful. I need to be minding the weather. I need to make sure that I'm not going up on the peaks in the afternoons, particularly when a storm's coming in. I need to get down to lower ground. I need to be watching that because, yeah, lightning is not something to be messed with. So that's number 3, the lightning through Colorado and then up into Wyoming. So the fourth thing that I am concerned about on my Continental Divide Trail thru hike is grizzlies. Yeah, grizzlies. Now, I grew up in the Sierra, right here, grew up in the Sierra. So chasing black bears out of camp, I've been doing that since I was a teenager. But grizzlies, yeah, that's a whole different thing. I have not dealt with grizzlies. So, I know attacks are rare, quite rare, but I'm going to be taking my precautions. I'll pick up my bear spray, I think, in Lander, Wyoming, probably with every other CDT hiker. And as I'm going from there up to the northern border, going through Yellowstone and Glacier National Park, yeah, I'm going to be taking extra precaution to make sure that if I see a grizzly, there's quite a bit of distance between it and me, and it's not going to feel threatened, and I'm not going to feel threatened. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Whatever counter happens, I'm hoping it'll be like that. So that is number 4 on the list. And the fifth thing that concerns me the most about my Continental Divide Trail thru hike is the 8 million steps. Now, it's estimated that a thru hiker takes between 5 million to 7 million steps if they're doing the Appalachian Trail or Pacific Crest Trail. The Continental Divide Trail thru hike is a little longer. It's 3,000 miles, so I'm thinking 8 million steps. And anything can happen in those 8 million steps. When I step off the terminus down at Crazy Cook Terminus in New Mexico and I point myself north, I'm not stopping. I mean, quitting is not in my vocabulary. You know, yeah, that ain't happening. And it would take a pretty good injury for me to get off trail. If you watched my Pacific Crest Trail through hike, you know that I fell down some rocks about mid-Oregon and hurt my knee pretty good. Notified my wife via the Garmin, and being a true military spouse, she said, okay, stay there. She drove up the next day, about an 8-hour drive from the house, essentially handed me a knee brace and yeah, you know, put it on, move out, draw fire. You got 700 miles still. And so that's what I did. I did the last 700 miles with a brace on my leg and completed the trail. 4 years now from hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. You know, the knee never really fully healed. If you watch my training video, you can see me, you know, still running with a slight limp. But in the immortal words of Shane Falco from the Replacements, you know, pain heals, chicks dig scars, and glory lasts forever. So, yeah. But I know that on the Continental Divide Trail, I could, you know, I could have an injury that puts me off the trail. When I hiked the Appalachian Trail, I hiked with a thru-hiker, a trail named Orlando. And, you know, it was his second attempt on the Appalachian Trail. He had tried in 2021, broke his leg pretty seriously, and he was convinced he was going to get back on the trail. And his doctor was like, no, you're not. And eventually he had to realize that himself. But, you know, 2022, he started off right from the beginning. You know, you got to do the whole thing if you're gonna do a thru hike. And if you're doing the 8 million steps, the more steps you do, the further you're down the trail, the more you're invested in that thru hike. So if you're 5 million steps into a 8 million step thru hike and you break something, you know, well, next year you got to start over again. So yeah, you know, from the moment I step off the southern terminus in New Mexico to the moment I arrive at Waterton up in the border of Canada, every step, I got to be thinking about every step. I do not want to get injured. I want to complete the trail. Yeah, so that's my fifth concern, is the 8 million steps. Now, my wife did have an honorable mention. She, you know, I was telling her the 5 things I was concerned about. She did have an honorable mention. She said Sasquatch, but that's more of a Pacific Crest Trail thing, specifically up in Oregon, not so much on the Continental Divide Trail, as far as I know. We'll see. But those are the 5 things I'm concerned about my Continental Divide Trail thru hike. The heat in New Mexico, the snow in Colorado, the lightning in Colorado and Wyoming, the Grizzlies in Wyoming and up in Idaho and Montana, and then the 8 million steps. 8 million steps that I'm going to have to take from point A to point B, and Mexico to Canada, get that baby done. Those are the 5 things I'm concerned about. Hey, when this video comes out, trail days will be going on the Continental Divide Trail down in Silver City, about mile marker 150. So I imagine most of the thru hikers that are already on the trail, they'll be congregating down in Silver City. 3 days of enjoyment, good festivities, good food, good drinking, some lecture series, and some good music. They'll have a great time. But for me, I'm still on schedule to start 1 May. That's my targeted date to step off Crazy Cook Monument. I will put out next week, I'll put out a final video before I take off, my final thoughts before I get on trail. And yeah, it's going to be great. See you next time.